There is a kind of magic so old, so constant, that it has become background noise, not the kind spoken in spells or conjured with wands, but something quieter, denser, rooted in the dirt and the dust, in heat and shadow, in the things we build and burn and bury. This magic does not need to be believed in. It only needs to be noticed. It begins not with fire, nor with light, but with the materials themselves, with what we hold, with what holds us. Take the mirror. You have stood before one. We all have. You look into it and see yourself, yet not yourself, a twin made of light, reversed and flattened, a silent mimic, a rehearsal space for identity. You check your teeth, adjust your clothes, tilt your head, and somewhere in the middle of all that, the mirror makes a suggestion. This is you. This is what others see. But that is a lie. No one ever sees you as the mirror does. You will never see yourself with your own eyes, only the echo. Mirrors are not natural. They must be made. Polished obsidian came first, volcanic glass, black and quiet. Later, polished bronze, then silver, then glass backed with metal. To make a mirror is to coax a reflection out of the world, to take sand and fire, melt it into clarity, then line it with metal that answers to light. This is alchemy, whether we call it that or not. In some stories, mirrors reflect more than appearance. They reflect truth. They catch lies. In others, they deceive. They lead you astray. In myth and legend, mirrors are gateways into dream realms, spirit worlds, parallel realities. You've heard the games. Stand in front of the mirror in the dark and whisper her name 3 times. Bloody Mary. Wait. Do not look away. The fear is not that nothing happens. The fear is that something does. Why is it always 3 times? Why in the dark? Why the mirror? Because mirrors have always been thresholds. They are the edge between presence and absence, the surface of the world and what lies beneath. When someone died in the house, people used to cover the mirrors, fearing the soul might get trapped inside. In some traditions, they still do. The mirror does not lie, but it does not tell the whole truth either. Behind it always is metal, usually aluminum now, but in the old days, silver. Silver has long been tied to magic, wards against werewolves, purifier of water, aligned with the moon, feminine, reflective. But deeper still, under the silver, is iron. Iron is not delicate, it is not polite. It is blood and bone, furnace and weight. It fell from the sky in ancient times, before we knew what stars were made of. Meteoric iron was used to craft sacred tools, blades, jewelry, and weapons that arrived from the heavens. Iron does not just make things, it makes us. The blood in your body holds iron atoms like lanterns. They bind to oxygen. They carry it to your cells. Every breath you take rides on iron, but iron is also memory. You can rust it, shape it, forge it, but it remembers. In its magnetic properties, it can even hold information. Hard drives use iron, compasses obey it. The Earth's core pulses with it. Without it, we would have no shield from the sun's fury, no poles, no direction. In folklore, iron is the enemy of the uncanny. Place a nail above a door to keep the fae away. Lay a cold iron bar at the foot of the bed to prevent a changeling from being swapped for your child. Horseshoes were nailed above thresholds not for luck, but for protection. Iron grounds, it binds, it does not ask permission. In its molten breath, it gives off smoke. Ah, smoke, the breath of transformation, the scent of endings. Smoke is what a thing becomes when it lets go of its form. A log becomes warmth, light, ash, and smoke. It drifts and sways, revealing the shape of air. It shows the movement of the invisible. There is a reason smoke has been used in rituals around the world. From sage smudging to incense burning to pyres and cremation, smoke carries the moment skyward. It marks the boundary between body and spirit, between event and echo. In temples, smoke rises from sticks of incense, curling like language before language. It fills the corners of the room, reaching where words cannot. In homes, it is lit to cleanse, to protect, to comfort. It can be used to welcome or to banish. In shamanic practices, smoke is a veil to enter altered states. It clouds the eyes and clarifies the mind. It tells the body, you are not where you were. You are somewhere else now, a place where things speak that do not have mouths. We fear smoke when we do not control it. It signals danger, fire, and collapse, but we are also drawn to smoke. Watch it long enough, and you begin to see patterns, a kind of language, the way it remembers the thing it once was, the breath of a page, the last whisper of a house, the final breath of a candle's flame. And what of the candle? What of that slow, contained burn? That brings us to wax. Wax is the flesh of the flame, soft, pliable, shaped by heat. Beeswax in particular was once prized. The sacred labor of the hive melted down to make light. Monks rolled it into tapers. Magicians carved names into it. In some traditions, wax figures were used for healing or for harm, a proxy for the body softened and lit, a prayer by fire. Wax holds intention, it melts slowly, carrying your will. A candle lit for someone you love, for protection, for clarity. You watch it burn and imagine the message drifting with the smoke. And beside the candle, always paper. Simple, unassuming, but nothing in history has held more magic. Paper is compressed time. It begins as pulp, wood, grass, fibers, soaked and pressed and dried into something that waits to be marked. It holds ink like memory holds meaning. Every spell ever written, every poem, every law and heresy, every secret. It is not just what we write that matters, it is that we write at all. To write is to fix a thought in place, to command the future to remember. In magical traditions, this act becomes ritual. Fold the paper, anoint it, hide it beneath a pillow, burn it, bury it, offer it. Even now, across the world, people write their wishes on slips of paper and tie them to trees, float them down rivers, light them on fire. There are protection charms written in red ink on rice paper, meant to be consumed. Contracts with spirits signed and sealed in ink, folded and bound. Paper becomes an offering, a witness, and still we throw it away. Still we crumple it and let it drift to the floor. That is how the magic fades, not with fire or curse, but with forgetting. But the world remembers. The world continues to offer. Stone, for instance. Stone holds silence better than any other material. It watches without speaking. Mountains, statues, tombs, doorways, all shaped by stone. It has been carved, stacked, worshipped. It lasts longer than language. Petroglyphs still whisper from canyon walls. Animals etched into rock before the wheel was turned. Touch stone, and you are touching deep time. You are holding something that has survived oceans and continents. To build in stone was once an act of devotion. Cathedrals, temples, cairns, each piece lifted and placed with intention. And what of clay? Clay is earth given to the hand. It responds to touch. It holds fingerprints, folds, grooves. In ancient Sumer, the first writing was pressed into clay tablets, the beginning of records, debt, story. When clay hardens, it becomes permanent. But before that, it is pure potential. A cup, a seal, a figure shaped in likeness, clay dolls buried with rites, clay masks to ward off spirits, clay smeared on the skin to cleanse or mark the body. It is not the complexity of these materials that gives them power. It is their familiarity. They are the old ways hiding in plain sight. Mirrors, iron, smoke, wax, paper, stone, clay. None of them need you to believe in them to work. They simply wait, quietly doing what they have always done, reflecting, binding, rising, melting, remembering, holding, shaping. If you are still here, listening, perhaps something in you already knew this. Perhaps something in you remembers the weight of objects that once meant more than they do now. If so, I invite you to follow the threads in the description below. No urgency, no pitch, just more trails to follow. If your feet are curious and your hands still remember how to touch with meaning. Because this is not fiction. This is not fantasy. This is the way the world actually works. We write on paper and it changes lives. We hammer iron into shapes that hold cities. We stare into mirrors and decide who we are. We burn, and smoke carries what words cannot. We live inside of magic and call it Monday. We think of magic as spectacle, flash, light, transformation in a single breath. But real magic, the kind that has endured, moves slowly. It settles in the joints of things, in the way doors open, in the grain of wood, in the repetition of small acts. Take wood, you hold it every day, a spoon, a chair, a handle, a floor beneath your feet. It is so familiar that we forget what it is, the memory of a tree, the body of something that once grew toward the sky and drank sunlight. Every ring in its core is a story, a season, a reckoning. Wood has always carried intention, carved into charms, whittled into figures, shaped into staffs and totems, and sacred tools, oak for strength, ash for flight, willow for mourning and healing. Wands in their oldest forms were not just sticks, they were messages, living conduits of lineage and belief. The doorframe you walk through, the table you eat at, the beam above your bed, all of them once lived in a forest. All of them watched birds, felt rain, knew silence. Even the simplest act, knocking on wood, echoes a ritual that predates explanation. Some say it comes from the old belief that spirits lived in trees, and that by knocking, you acknowledge them. A courtesy, a request, protection, perhaps, from the unseen. You knock to ward off misfortune or to keep something good from flying away. A gentle touch to the ribs of a fallen giant. That is what it is. And then there is wax, which we have already seen burning in ritual, but which also preserves. A seal on a letter, a mark of authority, pressed into soft wax with a ring or stamp. This was not merely practical, it was sacred. It told the receiver, this message has not been touched. This word is intact. The wax held the intention, and the symbol burned into it became law or loyalty or confession. A candle's wax pools as it burns, reshaping itself again and again. There are those who read the shapes of cooled wax the way others read tea leaves, a kind of divination by the melted, as if the candle had something to say. Light a candle, and you set time in motion, not just in hours, but in mood, in presence, in the rhythm of breath. And still we light them. in churches, in bedrooms, in vigils and rituals and bathwater silence, because fire, controlled and quiet, is still one of the oldest forms of prayer. Even stone remembers fire. Obsidian, formed in the sudden cooling of volcanic heat, was once used to make blades sharper than any steel. It cuts at the cellular level. In ancient ritual, obsidian blades opened the body so the soul could step out. In burial, it was placed near the dead to ward off what might follow. Obsidian is a mirror too, a black mirror. Polished and dense, it reflects not with clarity, but with weight. You do not see your features. You see the shape of your presence. You see the dark twin of light. Some say black mirrors are used for scrying, the practice of gazing into a reflective surface to see visions, messages, echoes, the still water of a bowl, the shine of a blade, the glint of obsidian in firelight. To scry is not to hallucinate, it is to pay attention, to enter a state where the eye becomes a listening device. These are not fictions, they are techniques, practices, old technologies of attention. Attention itself is perhaps the most powerful magic we possess. Whatever we look at grows. Whatever we name begins to take shape. Whatever we ignore fades. Our ancestors knew this, which brings us to another quiet material, thread. A line spun from fiber, hair, plant, wool, sinew. It binds things together, but it also maps the world. In myth, thread appears again and again. The fates wove the lives of mortals. Ariadne gave Theseus a thread to find his way out of the labyrinth. Spiders in many traditions are sacred weavers, not just of silk, but of story. To tie a thread around something is to claim it, to remember, to promise. In some folk practices, red thread is tied around the wrist for protection. In others, a knot in a thread holds a wish, and the thread is worn until it falls away, taking the wish with it. The act of spinning, of weaving, of braiding, these are all old forms of enchantment. Before there were books, there were patterns. Before there were scrolls, there were tapestries. Before language, there was the movement of fingers through fiber. So many materials, so many textures of belief. Clay, paper, stone, wax, iron, wood, thread, glass. We live among them, but we do not speak to them. We forget their names even as we rely on them to hold the weight of our days. What makes a material magical is not the rarity of its origin, but the shape it takes under our hand, the way it listens, the way it holds meaning. Even dust, even the fine coat of powder on a forgotten shelf, is made of fragments of once living things, skin cells, plant matter, broken down stars, the residue of breath and fire. In Tibetan sand mandalas, colored dust is shaped into sacred geometry only to be brushed away, a lesson in impermanence, in attention, in the beauty of effort without permanence. This is the lesson behind every magical object. Not that it is special, but that it is seen. That we slow down enough to honor what it offers, to hold a rock and feel the pressure of centuries, to light a candle and watch the way it leans, to write a word on paper and remember that it will outlast the hand that wrote it, to watch smoke rise and understand that what burns does not vanish. It changes, to press a fingerprint into wet clay and know that it may still be there when the skin has turned to ash. These are not metaphors. They are mechanics. They are how the world speaks when we stop talking over it. You do not need to believe in spells to practice this kind of seeing. Just open your hands and pay attention. because the world is made of thresholds. Every object you touch could be a door. Every material, a language, every breath, a ritual. You are not separate from the magic. You are the one who animates it. You walk through this world like a story waiting to be told, and everything around you, like the smoke, the mirror, the iron, and the ink, they are listening. Somewhere right now, someone is lighting a match. They do not think it is magic. They are simply trying to see in the dark, or to warm the room, or to bring a candle to life. But in that small flicker, ancient elements awaken. The sulfur ignites, the phosphorus flares, the wood catches, fire, the original transformation, dances at the tip of the world's oldest question. How can something so alive come from something so dead? We are surrounded by these small awakenings. In the creak of floorboards, old trees remember our weight. In the curve of a spoon, metal softened by flame becomes nourishment. In the folds of a letter, a voice waits to be heard again. And in the mirror, always, that quiet flicker of recognition, the self watching the self, asking if we are still the same as yesterday. These are not props, they are partners, silent collaborators in our story. Even the dust in the corner of a room, undisturbed, holds magic, not because it is beautiful, but because it is made of everything we discard. Dead skin, pollen, fibers, the ghost of fire, fragments of paper, flakes of iron, traces of our breath. To look closely at dust is to look at what we become when we are no longer held together. And perhaps that is what magic has always been. Not some external force, but the recognition that everything is already charged, that the world does not wait for permission to astonish us, that materials are not dead, but merely quiet. That attention is the last missing ingredient. This is why we return to ritual, to folding paper with care, to lighting candles on certain days, to knocking on wood when we speak too hopefully, to carrying a smooth stone in the pocket, to hanging mirrors just so, to wearing iron in rings or nails or keys. We think we are rational, but we are not built only of reason. We are built of memory, texture, repetition, and trust. The sound of a match, the scent of old paper, the cool of clay, the breath of smoke. These are not decorations, they are anchors. They hold us when we forget how to hold ourselves. The real magic is not that we can transform the world. It is that we are made of the world, that we are of the same fabric as clay and wax and thread and ash, that we too are materials, pressed, shaped, hardened by time, that we carry the memory of fire in our blood, that we are drawn to reflective surfaces not out of vanity, but because something in us is always trying to remember the shape of our spirit. If there is a spell to be cast, it is this. Notice what holds you, what you hold. Notice the mirror and the weight of being seen. Notice the iron and the way it steadies your hands. Notice the smoke and how it never moves the same way twice. Notice the paper and the silence it keeps for you. Notice the wood and how it never forgets the wind. Notice the thread and where it tugs. Notice the stone and how it never asks for attention, but receives it all the same. These are the things we overlook when we are busy chasing the loud miracles. But it is the quiet ones that carry us. The real spells are the ones we cast without knowing. The moment you place your hand on a surface and breathe deeply. The moment you pause to feel the wax melt. The moment you write a name and fold the paper carefully. The moment you light the candle and whisper nothing. The moment you look in the mirror and say, quietly, "Yes, I am still here," that is the ritual. That is the enchantment. That is the world remembering itself through you. And maybe that is what magic really is. Not power, not trickery, not illusion, but presence and a kind of listening.